Welcome back, everyone. So today I wanted to talk about presser feet. So having the right equipment really does make a big difference in the quality of your projects. And so there are several Bernina feet, because I have a Bernina machine. So there are several Bernina presser feet that I use on a I'm not going to say daily basis because I don't sew every single day, but usually whenever I do a project, I will switch out between the presser feet all the time to try to get the best result for my project. So I wanted to talk to you about my favorite presser feet and what they will do for your project and how they'll make your project just a little bit better. So my Bernina machine came with this as like a general all-purpose foot. It's a number 1 foot. And I think that it's, I don't know, just a standard presser foot that comes with most machines. Most machines will just come with that general purpose foot. So if you'll just take a look, it's just a pretty basic foot. So my default foot that I keep on my machine is actually the 37, which is a 1/4 inch foot. So this particular foot is from the middle of the needle to the outside edge. There is a 1/4 inch, and just right here to the inside of this mark is 1/8 inch. So I keep this on my machine most of the time because most of the sewing that I do is actually a 1/4 inch. So this is one that I keep on my machine constantly. The next foot is the zipper foot. So this particular zipper foot, if you can see, it's got 2 little indentations here on each side. So you can move your needle over this way or that way, depending on which way you're coming at your zipper. But this helps you get real tight and close up to those zipper teeth. So this is the number 4. And then whenever I'm doing any kind of quilting whatsoever, or quilting any layers or sewing lines or any of that stuff, I will use my walking foot. So this walking foot has this really neat thing on the side of it. It's a guide. So you just unscrew this back part here and you can move this guide wherever you want to. It looks very intimidating. This looks like a monster of a presser foot. However, you just fit this over the little bar, and then this right here just goes in just like any other presser foot. So it might take you a couple extra seconds just to make sure that you're lined up with that, but it's very, very easy to put on. And then this guide here helps you get perfectly straight lines, which is my favorite thing about it. Favorite thing about it. However, the other good thing about it is it has a second set of feed dogs here. So you've got your feed dogs that are normally underneath your machine, and then you have these extra feed dogs here, which just helps you get nice even stitches because it helps hold those layers. And then my very last, but certainly not least, favorite presser foot is the number 10 edge foot. So this particular foot has this guide here. So if you can see this little thing right here, it lines up right there with the needle. So if your needle's in the center position right there, then this little guide here would sit right there in the ditch. So you can stitch in the ditch with this foot. But if you move the foot over 5 steps or 5 movements to the right or to the left, you'll get a nice perfect 1/8 inch line, and then you just use this as the guide. So we're going to go over to the machine. I'm going to show you what each one of these presser feet can do for you. Okay, so now we're at the machine, and I just wanted to start with that basic number 1 foot just to kind of show you what results you're going to get from a foot like that. So there is absolutely nothing wrong with this foot. There is nothing wrong with the basic general foot that comes with your machine. The only reason that I'm trying to show you this is because I want you to see what the difference between this foot and a little bit more of an accurate 1/4 inch foot can give you. So in one of my other videos, when I talked to you about making your own strapping, I was talking to you about how if I'm making strapping that's short, I'm going to try to be a little bit tighter with my sew, just so that the strapping goes in nice and tight. But if the strapping is a little bit longer, I need to have a little bit more room so that the whole strap can go through. So in this particular instance, if I'm making a short strap, which I did right here, I went ahead and used this foot because this foot gave me a little bit more than a 1/4 inch. So the 1/4 inch foot is going to give you just slightly inside of this. This is, again, just slightly outside of it. So for the purposes of making a strap that I want to be nice and tight, I went ahead and used this foot. So I'm going to show you what the difference between this foot is and the 1/4 inch foot. So if we're going to make a straight line stitch, and I went ahead and put in a dark pink thread on white fabric so that you can see what actually happens here. So we're just going to sew a straight line. We're just going to go ahead and we're going to make sure that our fabric follows the edge right here, and you can see what the measure, I'm going to measure this so that you can see what the difference is. So we're just going to go nice and slow so that we make sure that we're nice and tight right up there to that fabric. Okay, and then I'm going to stop it and I'm going to cut it. And then we're going to switch to that 1/4 inch foot so that you can see what the difference is. It's subtle. I'm not going to tell you that it's something, you know, huge, but if you are trying to get accurate 1/4 inch piecing, you are absolutely going to want to switch to a 1/4 inch foot, because this will give you as close to an accurate 1/4 inch as you can get. So now we're going to put this back under this one and we're going to see where we end up. So I'm going to move it just a bit right here. And we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to start sewing right down that line. We're just going to keep it right up to the edge. So we're just right on the edge, just like we were with the last one. Okay, now we're going to stop and we're going to measure and see what happens here. So again, it doesn't look like very much. It doesn't look like very much has changed. But if you look at this, but you can clearly see that this is a bit more narrow than this. So let's get out the measuring tape, or the measuring stick as my husband likes to call it. And right here you can see that we're just over that 1/4 inch line. So if we take this right here, let's hold it up, we take it here, we can see that we are about a 1/16 of an inch over the 1/4 inch mark, which doesn't seem like a big deal. And it really isn't that big of a deal in general sewing. I'm definitely going to tell you, if you're just making something that the accuracy doesn't need to be spot on, your regular foot's going to work just fine. But if you're trying to get something with very accurate measurements, you're going to want to go with the 1/4 inch foot. So you see right here, I am dead on to that 1/4 inch right there. So if I'm trying to do quilting, or again, something that really needs an accurate seam, I'm going to switch to my 1/4 inch foot. As I said before though, I usually keep this foot on almost all the time. So that's just the way that I like to sew. That's just something that makes me a little bit more comfortable. So that's the one that I keep on. Okay, so the next one that we're going to look at is the number 10 edge stitch foot. So on this one, I want to show you why I use this one, or in what instances I use this one. So here's that strapping I was talking about. So all this is just a fabric tube, and I took some 1 inch seatbelt strapping and threaded it in there. And now I want to go ahead and top stitch this to make it nice and secure, and it also gives us that nice decorative edge. So I'm going to put on my number 10 edge stitch foot in this guide right here. Pay attention to this guide. So now I'm going to move the needle over all the way to the left. And now we're going to put that needle, or put the presser foot down. And you see how I'm butted up right up against there? Now we're just going to run this, okay? And this finger over here is pressing forward this way. I've got a finger over here keeping it nice and straight. So we're just going to run this down this way. And I'm going to show you how wonderful this foot can be, and how it's going to give you something that's just super nice. Okay, and it was very easy because, again, I used my fingers and I just used that guide. Look at that. Look how wonderful and straight that is. I could never have done that with just my eye and a presser foot. It just doesn't happen that way for me. I know there's some people that can do that. I'm not one of those people. So that's just a wonderful, nice, straight 1/8 of an inch. There are other times where you may want an 1/8 of an inch. Or again, you can also stitch in the ditch. So if I'm trying to get right in the center of a seam that I made, such as if I'm putting on quilt binding and I want to be able to flip it over, then I'm going to use that to do the stitch in the ditch. Now, the next foot that we're going to use is a zipper foot, and I'm going to show you why we're going to use a zipper foot. So the first thing I'm going to do though is I'm going to sew on this binding to this piece of quilted fabric on the bad side, or not the bad side, the back side. So I just have a little excess quilted something or other from a project that I'm doing for one of my Christmas gifts this year. So we're just going to put this binding on real quick, and then I'm going to flip it over to the other side, and I'm going to attach it using the zipper foot so you can see how nice of a line that's going to give. So we can do it two different ways. We can use that stitch in the ditch foot, or what is it? The edge stitch foot. I'm sorry, not stitch in the ditch foot. With some makers, it's called a stitch in the ditch foot. With Gardena, it's actually just called an edge stitch foot. But I misspoke there. But like I said, let's flip this over. And I'm going to show you what's going to happen if we put the 1/4 inch foot. So the not the 1/4 inch foot, the zipper foot. So if we put the zipper foot on there, it's going to help us because it's going to give us a nice guideline. So if you look here, I'm going to try to show you, you see here how it's got these little indentations right here. So if you move it in just a touch and you follow this outside line and your needle's right over there, you're going to get a really, really nice, crisp, clean line. So let's move it over all the way to the left. Now we're going to take this binding and flip it over. Okay, so just like that. And now we're going to sew it on using the zipper foot. So my zipper foot is going to follow this line here. So we're just going to sew. Okay, and we're just going to keep readjusting a little bit, making sure that that follows the line. Ooh, I just veered off just a little bit there. I'm going to go ahead and stop it so you can see. So now we have a nice crisp line right there near the edge. Okay, so you can also use the edge stitch foot for this. I tend to not have as much success with using the edge stitch foot on this, and I don't know why it is, but it's definitely usable for doing this binding, but you just kind of got to be very careful that you're not letting the fabric kind of bubble up. You know, in other words, you got to make sure that it's nice and tight against that edge there. So let's see if I can do this. Let's see if I can do this on camera way better than I can do it when I'm not on camera. So let's just see what happens. That was pretty good, actually. I think that came out a little bit better than the other one, than the zipper foot. Now there is a little bit of unevenness, but I think that's just due to the way I was moving my fingers there. But anyway, the edge stitch foot and the zipper foot are really helpful for doing things like binding, anything that you need to have a 1/4 inch. Now the very last foot that I want to show you, first off, let's get the needle back in the middle there. The very last foot that I want to show you is the walking foot. So the walking foot is easy to put on. You just take this little thingy here and you put it over that little knob right there. And then you put the head in the way that you would any other presser foot. And then you just put your little lever down and there you are. So what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and grab this, which is just fabric that's a quilt sandwich basically. So it's 2 layers of fabric with batting in the middle. And we're going to go ahead and just sew a line down the middle. Just a regular old straight line with a 2.5 inch stitch length. And then I'm going to show you how you use this guide foot. So this guide foot here, so let's just say I want to do a 1 inch distance between my lines. So this little knob back here, the one that I showed you earlier, I would just unscrew it, and I'm going to put my line, or put the end of my ruler right there where the needle comes down, and then I'm going to move this piece over right there at the 1 inch mark. So right there at the 1 inch mark. In fact, I might move it just a little bit inward just so that it's centered over that 1 inch mark. Loosen up just a little bit. There we go. Right there on the 1 inch mark. So that's going to give me an exact 1 inch line. So now we're going to go back here to the machine, and you see how this is right here on this guideline? Now, as long as I follow this, so while I'm sewing, as long as my eye follows this and make sure that this is lined up with this, then I'm going to end up with a perfectly lined up 1 inch line from the previous line. See how nice that is? That is a perfect 1 inch line. And now you can go all the way across. You can do diagonals. You can do whatever it is that you want that's straight line. And this guide's going to help you do that. So no more marking, no more Hera markers, no more chalk markers, no more nothing. You can just use your guide foot. So these are my favorite presser feet. So I know that everybody has their own favorites. These are just my favorites. I would encourage you to look and see what the manufacturer of your machine offers as far as presser feet. I know that when I bought my machine last year, I ended up buying about 10 extra presser feet, and some of them I don't even know how to use yet. I haven't learned how to use the pin tuck foot or the ruffle foot or the gathering foot just yet, but these are the ones that I use literally almost every time I sew. So I hope that you got some good information. I hope that you learned a couple of tips. So if you enjoyed what I shared with you today, please like and subscribe to my channel and drop me a comment below and let me know what it is you want to see next. Thanks. Bye-bye.